So before adding any functionality to application, the first thing we're going to want to do is populate the grid layout with icons. So to do that, I'm going to import two specific button classes. So the MD icon button and the MD fill round flat icon button. The MD icon button is going to hold all these buttons except the equals to button, and the MD fill round flat icon button is going to hold the equals to button. I'm using the MD fill round flat icon button for the equals to button because with many calculators the equals to button is more pronounced than the rest of the buttons. So to achieve that difference, I'm using an MD fill round flat button for the equals to button. Next, I'm going to create two classes that are going to inherit from the MD icon button and the MD fill round flat icon button. So the BTN class is going to inherit from the MD icon button. The EQ BTN is going to inherit from the MD fill round flat icon button. And you may be asking, why aren't you directly using the MD icon button and the MD fill round flat button? And why are you inheriting them? So with these two classes, BTN and EQ BTN, we will want to be able to manipulate the contents of the text field, so this text field, and the MD label. And the default class MD icon BTN and MD fill round flat icon BTN do not provide that functionality. Next, we will want to be able to access the grid layout from the .py file. To achieve that, we're going to use the object class from the kv.properties module. So I will import it, and then after that, in the entry point class, I'm going to define a new instance attribute called grid layout with the same name as the property defined in the entry point widget, and its value is going to be the object property class. With this definition, we are able to access the grid layout from the main.py file. Next, we're going to define a constructor function, and the reason why I'm defining a constructor function is because the init constructor function is called automatically each and every other time the entry point is called. So each and every other time the application starts, the init function is going to be called. So we're going to leverage this automation to be able to populate the grid layout with all the buttons that we need. And with that, I'm going to define a for loop. This for loop is going to loop through the icon dictionary and get all the keys. And as you can see, all these keys are icon values. So we're going to get the key, and then I'm going to define another variable BTN, which is going to hold an instance of the BTN class. And through each iteration, it's going to populate the BTN icon attribute with a different value. And then after that, I'm going to append this BTN to the grid layout, and with that you can see that we have added the 19 buttons to our application. After that, I'm also going to add the equals to button. This equals to button, it's different from the BTN. It has an icon which is equals and the text which is equals. Then I'm going to add this instance of EQ button to the grid layout. To do that, I will just pass the EQ BTN as an argument to the add widget method of the grid layout. And with that, we have added all the buttons that we are going to need for application. But you'll notice that the buttons are small and they are all pushed to the left of the application. But this is not what we want. And the reason why they are pushed to the right of the application is because in each cell, irrespective of whether we set the position hint of the buttons, we are not able to position it at the center or any other place inside the cell. To be able to fix this, we're going to wrap all these buttons inside a relative layout. And the real reason why I'm using a relative layout is because the relative layout will allow us to position elements at any position inside of it. And to do that, I'm going to import the relative layout. And then I'm going to create a button BTN nest, which is going to hold an instance of the relative layout. And then instead of nesting the BTN inside the grid layout, I'm going to nest it inside the BTN nest variable. And then later on, I'm going to nest the BTN nest variable inside the grid layout. I'm also going to do that for the equals to button. So I'm going to create another instance of the relative layout and assign it to the EQ nest variable. And then inside the EQ nest variable, I'm going to pass the equals to button as an argument to the add widget of the EQ nest variable. So with that, we're able to position buttons at the center of each column and each row. To be able to see that in action, I'm going to set the position hint of the two buttons to 0.5 for center X and center Y. So let's do that. And as you can see, the buttons are placed at the center of each cell. And to make these buttons a little bit bigger, as we saw in our application, I'm going to import the DP function from the matrix module, and then I'm going to set the icon size of the BTN to DP45, and with that our buttons are a little bit bigger. For the EQ button, I'm going to set its position hinge center X and center Y to 0.5, and then for this, to make it a little bit pronounced, I'm going to set its top and bottom padding to 30 and its right and left padding to 20. And with that, we have a more pronounced equals to button. With that, we have added all the buttons we are going to need for this application. Next, we're going to add functionality to each instance of the BTN class, that each BTN class is going to be able in a way to either manipulate the contents of the MD text field, the MD label, or both.